Salutations, everyone. I'm Elias, and this is the show that no one saw. For today's episode, I attacked 5 random people on Artfight. For those of you unfamiliar with Artfight, this might be an alarming statement. Artfight is an annual event spanning the month of July, in which artists can join teams and attack other players by drawing their characters in order to earn points for their team. I didn't participate last year because I was taking classes at the time, but I did hear that social media, mostly TikTok, had an unprecedented impact on the site culture. I'm also not on TikTok, so I'll list some videos from people who had more first-hand experience in the description below. My general impression during the year, though, was that Artfight's heightened exposure on social media in 2024 led to more widespread criticism and drama. People had lost the spirit of Artfight. I felt like Sandy Claus in The Nightmare Before Christmas seeing Jack in his Santa suit. So this year, I decided to use the site's randomize feature to pick 5 random characters to draw. I'm pretty sure that's what the spirit of Artfight is. Let's talk about what I learned. Up first is Bitey by Kitsen. I think this was my first time drawing one of these mixed species anthropomorphic characters, and I was very excited by this one because I love anglerfish. I wanted to do something that had a creepy and sinister kind of vibe, but was still cartoony and a little playful. I went for this very angular style with the wide eyes and the smile, but separated out all the joints and different chunks of the body to give them this flat, almost doll-like look. I was inspired by artists like Aki Yehuo and Kuri Huang, who do the same sort of thing at a much higher skill level. Clip Studio's record tool doesn't actually show when I flip the preview image while I'm drawing it, but I kept thinking that it looked better when flipped, and eventually ended up reversing the canvas. I loved the little white spots on the design. They reminded me of vitiligo, which is always awesome for me to see. I think it goes well with the sort of spacey theme that you see in their hair. I went back and forth with a couple of different glow effects before landing on this one with the rake brush. I finished off the lighting by dragging a gradient over each segmented area of the body and adding that cool blue bounce light. I kind of imagine when you get to the end of the universe, this is what's waiting for you. Next up is Ida by Kakami. I love this universe of magical girls that the artist has, and I was especially excited to have rolled this character. She has such a fun attitude to her. I wanted to do something with a fun angle or pose to convey that. I started off with this semi-low angle that I tried to make work for a long time, but I just really wasn't feeling it. I went back to Ida's page and saw that she had another character linked to her page, her girlfriend, Belle. I started drafting up different ways to show them together, and eventually settled on this high-angle rooftop idea. I was having some trouble translating Kakami's character designs into my style, particularly the faces. The best thing to do in this scenario is go back to the basics and identify core shapes. In the reference image, Ida has slimmer eyes with 3 distinct lines on the top lid, and Belle has bigger, rounder eyes and bottom lashes. Their outfits were complex, but the references were detailed and front to back, so it was easy to piece it together. I'm pulling up these buildings in the background by using Clip Studio's perspective ruler combined with the square shape tool. I then used Raiku's City Lights tool to rough in some windows. Later, I'll go over the edges with the same brush that I used to outline the girls to make it all look more cohesive. The color combination between the two of them was very satisfying, and I had fun playing with the lighting and overlay layers until it looked just right. And that's it. Next up is Chima from Chima. I started this portrait just drawing him the way that I'd normally draw a cat, but the original character just had so much spunk and personality to him that I knew it was time I learned how to draw talking animals. I watched some tutorials from YouTuber Breos, they'll come up later, who in turn directed me to the art of Aaron Blaze, who is something of a master of talking animals. The primary thing that I learned is that eyebrows will go a very long way when it comes to making a character design expressive. Once I had figured that out, I was much more satisfied with the expression and the attitude. After that, I just had to fill in the colors, which are very pleasant, by the way. And that's Chima. Speaking of talking animals, next up is Nyx from Swifty Burrito. Upon rolling this design, I was immediately entertained by her resemblance to a scene kid. In her bio, it says that she loves the macabre and the supernatural, so I wanted to draw her with a ghost hanging out of her mouth, like she'd just caught it during a trip through a haunted house. I struggled with the pose for a while. The remedy for this, as it usually is, was to zoom out and rough it in with a big, soft brush. Once I had the loose gesture done, I was able to enlarge it and pull in more detail much easier. I really enjoyed drawing this pose. There's a lot of long flowing lines and shapes that direct your eye throughout the design, which contrasts with all the sharp, pointy parts by her face. Once we get to color, the face is highlighted even further by the ghost glow. I thought it was odd to have her just running through a void, so I put in a background. I was inspired by backgrounds from the original Scooby-Doo Where Are You? I originally tried copying the colors I was seeing from the screenshots, but ended up skewing it more green to match the colors that I had put on the ghost already. I kind of want to make one of those color theory shorts about that moon because it's actually a sort of light lime green. Lastly, we have the piece that I actually started first, June and Deandra from Agent Dark Horse. When I rolled the characters, this was actually the first one that came up. I was very excited to have gotten this cowboy gift from the gods, and I knew I wanted to draw them with my own character, Hecuba. The thing that this all required was remembering how to draw horses. Remember when I said Breos would come up again? I hadn't gotten there yet, though. I was still convinced that I could work it out through brute force. Once I had finished the rough sketch, I went in and used the lasso tool to draw up a nice plain sunset behind them. This will hopefully be a more entertaining backdrop than the typical gray that you see in my videos. After that, I spent a while convinced that I could just line on top of this very rough sketch, but that was pretty far from the truth. I went back to my sketch brush to draw up some nicer pencils, and it was at this point that I went back and watched some tutorials on horses. I'm glad I decided to go for the talking animal look with these two. I think it makes the whole piece feel more expressive and friendly. Once I had done that, I was able to line the piece with much more ease. Though you might see me messing with the faces a bit still, the slight up angle was hard enough, but drawing Hecuba happy was a whole other beast. I laid down some shadows with the lasso tool, then went in and softened them up with a watercolor brush. The more you work on lasso selecting, the better you get at it. I used to think it was way more time consuming than drawing in the shadows manually, and that used to be true, but once I got the hang of it, it became a huge time saver. To give it a sort of vintage feel, I added a noise overlay, then copied the line art layer, put it on 30% color burn, and applied a Gaussian blur. This makes the ink look like it's bleeding. I also copied the whole image, blurred that, and erased out the focal points to enhance the focus and direction in the piece. I spent almost 4 weeks on this one, but I was really happy with how it turned out. And that brings us to the end of our show tonight. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and a special thank you to everyone who participated in Artfight this year. I personally had a great time, and if you played, I hope you did too. Links for everything and everyone that I mentioned in this video will be in the description. Be sure to subscribe and head over to my Ko-Fi so you can see your name up here in lights just like this. That's all for us here at the show that no one saw. Thank you, and good night.